Tonight on Locked On NFL Draft, it's heroes, not zeros from Week 1. C.J. Stroud went against the Irish. How did he fare? And what do we think about Stetson Bennett as an NFL draft prospect? That's next on Locked On NFL Draft.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Oh, yeah. Welcome into our team, the three amigos. John Harris, sideline reporter and football analyst for the Houston Texans, along with my man Ryan Tracy from Rogue Analytics, and former NFL, AFL defensive back, Eric Crocker. Follow all of us on Twitter, at Eric_Crocker, at JHarrisFootball. And Ryan, you are – it's not in front of me because I
know, right? It's right, Tracy NFL, folks.
There you go. Follow us all on Twitter. Get all the great information, not only on this podcast, but also through Twitter. And a reminder, this episode is brought to you by Brightco Jewelry and Watch Insurance. Brightco brings you comprehensive, fast, and affordable jewelry insurance for as low as $5 per month. That's a latte, people. Check out your special offer for Locked On listeners and get covered in under 2 minutes at bright.co/locked on. That's bright.co/locked on. And keep in mind, you don't have to say /, just say /. That's all you need. Like Cordell Stewart was the original / way back in the day. Now, Cordell Stewart ended up being drafted as a quarterback, and we're going to get into quarterbacks a little bit later. But, gentlemen, I want to start with the heroes of Week 1 in college football as pertained to draft prospects. I know we all had them. We watched a number of games. We didn't see every single game, so don't expect us to know every single prospect. But obviously, we were dialed into a few games. And Eric Crocker, I'm going to start with you. I know you were watching probably your USC Trojans. I don't know if anybody stood out there. But give me your hero from Week 1, not a zero.
Have y'all heard of a guy by the name of Bryce Wheaton?
Yes. From
receiver out of West Virginia.
Yes.
I hadn't heard of him. Big 6'3", 224-pound receiver. But I'm watching West Virginia against Pittsburgh, and one guy just continued to make plays, go out of his way to be a tremendous playmaker. The first one that really stood out, JT Daniels, quarterback for West Virginia, got hit, and the ball kind of fluttered in the air, and it was up for grabs. And next thing you know, this big guy, number 0, comes out of nowhere and attacks the ball at his highest point, comes down with it. I'm like, man, who is this guy? Bryce Wheaton, who is that? I haven't heard of him yet. And the next thing you know, he just continues to make plays to the tune of 9 receptions for almost 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, where they just tossed it up to him and he just dunked on defensive backs. It was excellent. Now, I know people are like, well, you're going to talk about the drop? He did have a drop, and I hear that's part of his one of the things that he has to really work to overcome and get more natural hands, get on that jug machine maybe. But he had a big drop that went right through his hands. The cornerback was there, picked it off, and not just picked it off, he took it to the house, right? So that can't happen. It was almost really a game-changing play to where, like, dang, is West Virginia going to lose because of that? They ended up coming back and winning. But in the sense of being a playmaker, we're talking about a guy who's a redshirt junior. I mean, hero he was in that game because he continued to make plays, and he got on my radar.
Yeah, no doubt. And Shropshire, the corner who ended up picking that ball off, stood out to me from a length standpoint. And then you see him obviously run and take it back to the house. He was very, very impressive in that game. But you're right, Fort Wheaton was unbelievable. Concentration drop on that one, man. As a DB, that's your favorite kind of pick, man. It's just floating in the air. All you got to do is just reach up and grab it. And he was able to do that. Ryan, your hero, not a zero.
The guy that stands out to me, I was really excited to see, obviously, the premier matchups, right? Like, I only get to watch a couple of games live each weekend, so I try to take those in. A lot of great performances. But the thing for me, the guy that I don't usually talk about running backs first, but Macintosh from Georgia really stood out to me as a guy that after the departure of 2 good backs, is a guy you can put the offense on his back. He was able to do everything for the backfield. The jet sweep I really liked because it gives you that extra dimensionality of getting horizontal before you hit the corner. I thought he really stood out as a guy that, hey, this offense, despite about the guy we're going to talk about later, like, it has multi-dimensionality that it can hurt you.
Yeah, no doubt. And I know we're talking heroes, not zeros, but man, there were some Oregon prospects that I was so pumped to see how they were going to play against Georgia.
Ruh-roh.
They weren't even on the same planet, that entire Georgia program. And I tweeted out that game looked a lot like Alabama-Miami last year, when Alabama really wasn't Alabama yet, and Bryce is just rolling down the field against Miami. I mean, it was a woodshed beating for Oregon. Those guys, I still think those guys can play. Brandon Dorlus, defensive tackle. Sewell, the linebacker, whose brother Penei Sewell is the tackle, got drafted by the Lions. And also Justin Flo, the other linebacker, who I don't know how he didn't get thrown out of a football game.
Right.
Which was crazy. Mine, you go Pitt and you go Georgia. I'm going to go Syracuse. Sean Tucker. Sean Tucker is not going to be RB1 because that to me is Bijan. I think Bijan is just electric. He only had 10 carries, but he had 71 yards, and he's got a run against ULM that is going to be put up on every highlight reel show. When he declares for the draft, they're going to put that video up there. I mean, it's unbelievable to see his feet at 205 pounds be able to slalom basically between defenders and not get touched really until he gets in the end zone. He's just incredible back. But Sean Tucker is pushing for me to be RB2 for Syracuse. And my player comp to him is pretty rich. It's Jonathan Taylor. And the running style is more what I'm thinking about, but also the speed. I don't think people understood coming out of Wisconsin that Taylor was a 4.37 guy. I mean, he could fly at 220 pounds. I see a lot of the same in Sean Tucker. But Robert and I, the offensive coordinators, knew he's got a BYU background, is now using him in a passing game, which I thought was really impressive. The first touchdown he had was a little throw out in the flat. He turns that into like a 60-yard touchdown. He got dinged up. He got hit on the thigh and missed the end of the second half of the second quarter. But he came back in the second half, and then you started seeing it all over again. And that was against a Louisville defense that's got some players on that side of the ball. Keitrell Clark, I got it in my Harris 100. So they've got some players on that side of the ball, and Tucker was just making guys look absolutely silly. And, oh, by the way, that Syracuse defense has got some dudes. They're all young, though. They're all young, and that Syracuse defense was phenomenal against Malik Cunningham and those guys. But I think the heroes, I think we hit on them. I think there'll be a few more that we'll hit on in the next break, including what do we think about C.J. Stroud, and how do we feel about Stetson Bennett being an NFL quarterback? I know no one wants to talk about it, but we will next on Locked On NFL Draft.
But first, let's talk to you all about the good folks over at Brightco, right? And listen, guys, here's a lesson. You don't want to be that guy, and you certainly don't want to have whatever happens splatter all over the internet. And that's exactly what happens when a guy goes to propose and he just fumbles the ring. And we've seen a lot of these videos, especially over at Brightco, right? Don't be that guy. But if you happen to be, make sure that you have some kind of jury insurance. And that's where Brightco comes in. No matter if it's lost, stolen, or you just can't figure out what happened, go to brightco.com/locked on. It's the fastest, easiest, and cheapest way to cover your butt with the best jury insurance in the business. These guys at Brightco, they are geniuses. They made buying insurance for your engagement ring or your watch or whatever you have to get covered in just 2 minutes on your cell phone, right? You won't find a better deal or great coverage that's super affordable than what you can get from Brightco. We all hate insurance. Like, nobody likes to pay for it because what if nothing happens? But if something does, you want to make sure that you're covered by Brightco. These guys, they turn the whole experience around, and now it's super easy, and you can do it all yourself this week. There's no excuses, man. For $5 a month, you can get a total comprehensive coverage, and it won't take you more than 2 minutes from your cell phone. Check it out right now at bright.co/locked on. All right, we want to thank you guys for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen of the day. For your second listen of the day, you got all kinds of shows across the Locked On network in 30 minutes or less every day.
All right, Ryan Tracy brought up Kenny Macintosh, running back from University of Georgia. We know they lost two running backs in James Cook and Zamir White. Those two went in the top 100 picks roughly of the draft, maybe a little bit beyond. I think White went a little bit later. Bills took Cook in the second round. It's going to be interesting to see how he fits with the Bills offense. But as we're watching Georgia this weekend, and I'm watching all these talented guys, my goodness, Georgia's just loaded. And I'm watching Stetson Bennett, and I see a pretty strong arm. I see him get out of the pocket and run, and you can tell he's running away from guys. And I look up thinking, why do we hate on Stetson Bennett as an NFL pro prospect? Could this guy be someone that gets in the mix in this particular draft, even though it's loaded with quarterbacks? So Ryan Tracy, Stetson Bennett, believe or not, he can be an NFL prospect. Why or why not?
Hey, if Mac Jones can do it, why can't he?
Oh, great question. Yeah, great point.
Tell me what the difference is, because I don't see it right now. You nailed two of my notes taken on the day. I thought his delivery looked a little bit faster. And that was one of my things, like, you got to get the ball out and be a little bit more decisive. I thought I saw that. Got to continue to see that. The zip was there, like you said, using his feet. And at the end of the day, this is a guy whose primary targets are tight ends. So, like, if he can manage nearly 400 yards and he's moving the ball around, that little dude McConkey, like, he stood out as somebody who's going to be helping Stetson Bennett. If we're talking about him later in the season, it will be because of him, in my opinion. So why not? He's got to distribute the ball just like Mac Jones did. He's got targets that he can hit. We got to give him a little bit of love for what he's doing.
I think the reason why you won't hear him seen that way just because of his size. He's listed at 5'11", 190 pounds. He might be even smaller than that. And I think if he was viewed as a better prospect coming out, I think there's the politics of that he's fighting as well. Yep. Where, look at Bryce Young. Bryce Young is not big. They might be the same size, right? Just one guy listed an inch taller than the other. But Bryce Young was a 5-star quarterback coming out of modern day in California, going to Alabama. Where Stetson Bennett is a guy who went to Georgia as a walk-on, left, went to a junior college, had to come back, still had to play behind a guy, JT Daniels, who's now on another team because Stetson Bennett played so well. And I think people are viewing him kind of as an overachiever as opposed to someone who just put up terrific numbers in week one. Threw for 368 yards, 2 touchdowns, completed 80% of his passes. You talked about the athletic ability. He has the mobility to where he's able to move around, make plays. We watched him against a really tough Alabama defense in the national championship game. And I know, they were missing a couple players, especially on offense. They didn't have their receivers, but that's always going to be an extremely tough defense to play against when you have Will Anderson bearing down on you every single play. And still, he figured out a way to win a national title. And he just doesn't get the love. He doesn't get the love. He doesn't get the respect. And I think a lot of it has to do with, one, how he's viewed as a prospect coming out of college or out of high school, and two, the size, 5'11", 190 pounds. That's pretty small for a quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's probably the one thing that does work against him. But Eric, I'm glad you brought up the perception, because I think perception becomes really important when you're looking at a guy. Well, this guy gets a shot because, and I bring up Byron Cowart, who was a guy that was supposed to be all world, going to Auburn, 5-star recruit. Doesn't work out there. He goes to Maryland, doesn't really do anything, but he's a 5-star guy. He ends up being a 3rd-round draft pick and didn't pop a pimple in college. But yet that perception, we can get it out of him. That 5-star, we can get it out of him. But it also works in reverse in the wrong way. I think Stetson, as I watch him, like, his arm, as you watch all these different quarterbacks throw, you're like, his arm's as strong as these other quarterbacks. He's as accurate right now. That accuracy has gotten better and better. And then you see him get out of the pocket, you're like, this guy makes plays. I might be able to live with a guy like that, but that perception to overcome. They showed his resume, if you will, coming out of high school. I can't remember where he was first, but he ended up somewhere first, maybe at Georgia. Then he ends up going to junior college. Then he comes back to Georgia. Then he's a walk-on, and then he eventually is 4th string last year. He gets the job, and I think everybody thought, well, they're winning in spite of him. But I think the other day showed, hey, wait a second. He can actually be a pretty solid asset on a team that's loaded with prospects, and maybe Stetson Bennett is a guy that gets drafted because of what he's showing. Now, a guy that we know is going to get drafted eventually, going to get drafted very, very high. C.J. Stroud now, they copyrighted the word the or the, so I guess I have to say it, and if I have to say it, then we have to pay The Ohio State University if I don't. But The Ohio State University gets a win over Notre Dame, and C.J. Stroud is going to be a guy we talk a lot about. But he completes 71% of his passes for 223 yards at about a 6.6 yards per attempt clip. He threw a couple touchdowns, didn't throw a pick, which against that Notre Dame defense was pretty solid. And then he came up with the big throw down the middle to number 10 for the touchdown. Eric, your thoughts on C.J. Stroud and what you saw against the Fighting Irish?
You mentioned some of his passing numbers, and clearly, 223 passing yards. That's kind of pedestrian for a performance, especially from this big-time quarterback. But I will say this. Even when they were not putting up a bunch of points early in that game. The offense was kind of struggling, I guess you could say. The stats don't matter. And I had someone ask me on social media, right, on Twitter, they messaged me and they said, hey, Croc, what do you take away from a prospect that has this big game, but then outside of that, maybe a little bit more average? I'm like, dude, like if you're looking at a prospect, it's all about the intangibles. It's all about the skill set. It's all about the traits that he possesses that are very consistent. And when I was watching him, and we're just looking at traits, not so much the final stats, he was making plays. I thought he was completing some tight window throws. He had to get out on the move. You could see that things were probably a little bit more difficult for him than he was anticipating going up against that Notre Dame defense. But I mean, spinning out of plays, making throws on the move, and then essentially starting to make bigger plays as the game continued on. I thought for a quarterback, and you want to see them battle through adversity, how do they overcome those things? I thought he did a terrific job of that and eventually pulling away with the win. The defense had a lot to do with that win as well. Yep. I will say that because the offense, they weren't scoring early on. But overall, with watching C.J. Stroud as a prospect, I came away happy to see how he overcomes a lot of the adversity.
Yeah, Brian,
that's interesting.
CJ.
Well, and real quick, we know he has the ability.
No doubt.
Right? We've seen that. We watched what he did in the Rose Bowl against Utah, and the throws that he made down the field. I mean, dots everywhere you go. So we know he has that ability. But what about when things aren't going well? All right, so I just kind of wanted to make sure I threw that in there.
Yeah, I disagree with you though, because we know he has the upside. We don't know he has the ability until he does it consistently. That's my number one takeaway. Completely inconsistent. You made some of those spin moves. You made some of those. The ball was off target more often than it should be from his platform and from the pressure that he was facing. I came away disappointed with the performance because I felt like on a night when your running back had to be your best receiver in terms of making probably the best catch of that game, I thought the deep ball early to Harrison looked great. But then he went away from me. He had a couple go in the dirt. Like I came away wondering, can he be that guy every day? And that's why I wonder, is he really going to be that good? I had him behind Bryce to begin this season in the offseason. He's done nothing to change that for me. I think he still got it in his upside, but if you don't have all, and this JSN thing without him, that makes me seriously question is what is it going to look like down the stretch?
And somebody did have JSN higher than Kayshon Boutte in his Harris 100 and was chastised for it last week. I'm not going to say who that was at all.
That guy.
But it was me. That said, he did miss Jackson Smith-Njigba. And I do think every quarterback will tell you, if you put true serum in that particular quarterback, yeah, man, you take away my whoopee, you take away my blanket, my go-to guy, yeah, it's going to hurt for a little bit. I got to make adjustments. I'll say this about Stroud. Sometimes it's one play that I see and I go, I didn't know he had that club in his bag. And that happened, and I can't remember when it happened, but there was a play where he got pressure and he got pushed out of the pocket to his right. So he's rolling right. And the thing I like about Stroud is he's not looking to run. When he's out of the pocket, he's looking to make a throw. So he's all the way to the right sideline and hold it. He's almost out of bounds, and he's got to throw on the run back inside, but get it to a point where his receiver can toe tap it on the sideline. He just dotted him. I mean, I was like, whoa. I didn't think he really had that club in his bag. I think his ball placement accuracy is top-notch coming from the pocket. I compared him in my player comp in my Harris 100 as Joe Burrow. For that reason, Joe Burrow coming out of LSU is as good as it got. Ball placement, accuracy, where the ball is placed, all that. And I think that's what C.J. Stroud's game is. But now I see him throw off platform, and I went, wow, boy, I didn't really think he had that club in his bag. So I came out of it thinking middling performance. Kind of agree with you, Ron. I thought it was like, okay. But when he had to make some throws, he did. He dealt with some adversity, and I think that was a big feather in his cap. But that throw off platform to his right, dotting a guy 15, 20 yards downfield, I thought was really, really impressive. And I liked seeing that as a different part of his skill set that, I mean, look, Ohio State offensive line is going to give up too much leakage. I mean, it's that good. So he hasn't really had to do that too much, but the fact he did it against Notre Dame and then put the ball on the money, I was really, really excited. Now, we have done Bryce Young versus C.J. Stroud before. We won't do that either or. I've got another quarterback either or and more in our Pick Your Prospect either or next on Locked On NFL Draft.
But first, of course, we want to talk to you about the good folks over at Prize Picks and what they have for you, man. It's a daily fantasy app where you can go on and you can put in entries on projections of players and props and what they are going to do. Or you can select more or less players, however you want to do it, kind of parlay it together and make you some money. All right. I love the format because it's daily. There's no commitment to it with any of the fantasy entries that I'm able to do. You can pick 2 to 5 players, and if they will go score more or less than their Prize Picks projections, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. There's no competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. Prize Picks offers projections on any sport that you can watch. That includes NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, golf, football, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, all the sports you can think of, including even scores like Euro basketball and cricket as well. They have it all. Our entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. So if the game starts at 3 p.m. and you look like, oh man, it's creeping towards 3 p.m., I need to get my entry in, you can do that in less than 60 seconds, all right? And they're currently operating in over 30 states. That's including our neighbors up north above the border with Canada. All right. Safe and fast withdrawals as well, so you don't have to worry about that. Once you win, you can pull it right out. All right. Download the Prize Pick app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play your daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match of up to $100 when using the promo code Locked On. So what that means is if you deposit $100, Prize Pick, they'll also give you $100. If you deposit $50, Prize Picks, you guessed it, they'll give you $50. All right. So don't forget to enter the promo code Locked In at sign up for an instant deposit match of up to $100 only at Prize Picks.
All right, let me tell you, if you're using Prize Picks to get some money down on the cricket matches, I absolutely love you. I love you. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you. I was teaching about 10 years ago, and I had a group of 8th graders, and they would come in talking about cricket and then start giving me the updates on the cricket match they had just watched in study hall before they got to my math class. So, get all in on that cricket. And with them, I used to do a segment called Either Or. And with Ryan and Eric, I have done this segment called Either Or, but not going to change it up too much, but I'm going to make it a specific pick your prospect, either or. So here we go. Now, this one's a little different because one prospect is draft eligible this year. One is not. But I tweeted out on Saturday how many NFL teams would trade their tight end room for Georgia's tight end room. So, Ryan, Tracy, we start with you. Are you taking in the future either massive Darnell Washington, the true wide tight end, or future All-American and first-round pick Brock Bowers? Take your pick, either or.
I got to say, I think they both had their spots in this game, and I enjoy watching both of them. The only thing that I get down to is I'm going to have to be patient because I think Bowers can be used in more ways. When I watch Washington, he's got, I don't even know how to put it, like creepy athletic ability.
Yeah.
But when I see him with the ball in his hands and no one is draped on him, no one is trying to drag him to the ground, I get like elderly Antonio Gates vibes from the way that he moves.
You did not just drop that on Darnell Washington. Elderly Antonio Gates?
It's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, who are we talking about here, right?
True.
But it is all about the contact. It is all about at the point when he can hurdle a grown man at that point. I mean, he's 7 foot tall as it is. That load coming at you, it is a lot to behold. But in the end, I think it's a narrower vision of what you can see him playing in an offense in the NFL. So I'll go Bowers.
Eric, Bowers or Washington? You want the pass-catching threat in Bowers who can also block, or do you want the blocker who can also catch?
Yeah, I wanted to go against Ryan here because I feel like we agree just a little too much, but I'm going with Bowers as well. First of all, he's from California, so, I mean, there's greatness already in his blood. He has been the best pass catcher, and that's including George Pickens, when you talk about prospects coming out of Georgia in a really long time. And George Pickens right now, for all he's going to do in the NFL, and I mean, winning Offensive Rookie of the Year, I think that is on the table for George Pickens. Bowers is an even better prospect than that. He does everything. He wins at every level. You talked about his blocking. In college football, tight ends aren't asked to block a whole lot because it's a lot of space. And it's a wide open college game. But when he learns that aspect of his game where it's like, hey, Bowers, like, you have to put your hand in the dirt, you have to block, I think that's something he can learn. That's more of a 1-2 type thing. But as a pass catcher, it doesn't get much better than what you're getting out of him. Vertically pushing down the field, his run after catch ability, the height, weight, speed, all those things, that checks out. So I'm definitely going to have to go with Bowers as well.
Okay, now let's be 100% truthful here. You are from California. He is from Napa. Those are two different worlds, and you know it. You know those are two different worlds, man. There's California.
That's wine country over there, man.
You see Stockton from there.
And then
hey, you can see Stockton, but it's like, I don't know. I think Stockton is 45 minutes maybe from Napa, 40 minutes. So it's not far, but Napa, that's like the wine vineyards and all that. Like, it's more country living, and where I'm from is like I don't even know how to put it, but it's always like one of the top 10 most dangerous cities in America. So they are different worlds for sure. He's right about that.
By the way, how in the heck does Brock Bowers get from Napa, California to the University of Georgia remains a mystery. But it kind of shows, I guess, where the Pac-12 is and the SEC is. That guy's right in the backyard of Stanford. I mean, whatever. Some Pac-12 West team could have ended up with him, but he ends up going to Georgia.
Hopefully USC, fight on. Hopefully USC can change that and start to keep guys. Shout out to my guy, Reliably Brown. I coached him at Edison. He's a true freshman playing at USC. And, had a touchdown in his first collegiate game. So that was exciting. Another guy got a shout out, Jonah Coleman. I coached Jonah Coleman since like middle school. And another true freshman from Stockton as well. He plays for Arizona. I think he led them in rushing in his first college game. So both of my guys, man, doing big things. That was exciting to see.
Your dude, Reliably Brown from out of Mater Dei?
Yeah, so he was with us his freshman year, sophomore year, and then going into his junior year, he transferred from Stockton and went to Mater Dei. They pick guys. But by the time I coached him, he already had every offer in the nation heading into his true sophomore year. He was already a 5-star, already had Alabama. I mean, every school that's big time, you name it, he had those offers already. So he was really a joy to coach up.
Now, two guys that I thought were really good that we've talked a little bit about. Eric, we'll go starting with you. Pick your prospect either or. Georgia interior disruptor Jalen Carter or Clemson's quick, explosive defensive tackle Brian Bryce.
Bryce has some nice plays, man. You see that guy out there. He's cat quick, big guy. So I'm going to have to go with him. It was exciting kind of watching him last night against Georgia Tech. Now, again, Georgia Tech, not elite competition. And for a while, it's like, is Georgia Tech going to be able to stick with Clemson? But ultimately, the talent gap started to take over in that game. But I'm going to have to go with him in that battle.
Ryan, Jalen Carter or Brian Bryce?
It's interesting that you say that, too, because this is a conversation at this point, right? But it is the level of competition. When you look at who Jalen was playing, a team that relies on its offensive line, and I think he looked like he comes off the ball just as well, if not better. I'd like to see him, get his hand usage a little bit further down the line, but I think he's more disruptive. Right now, I got to stay with Carter right now as the guy ahead for the time being until we see some better matchups.
I'll tell you what, those two defensive lines, you could put them together and go to a Sunday game and be just fine with those two at Georgia and Clemson. My goodness, Clemson just kept trotting them out there. And Georgia is not missing a beat after losing 2 first-rounders and 3 first-rounders, and Devontae Wyatt and Jordan Davis, and the number 1 overall pick, Trevon Walker, and Georgia's just fine. Okay, this last one, these two will actually meet on Saturday, and I cannot wait for this. Pick your prospect, either or. Ryan Tracy, you will go first. Either Kentucky quarterback Will Levis or Florida's new superstar quarterback, can he do it again? Anthony Richardson. Ryan Tracy, pick your prospect.
Man, if this were a week ago, it'd be Levis in a landslide. But athletic ability aside, I thought we saw from Richardson some improvement. I talked about it yesterday on the show. For those of you who didn't see it, go back, listen to yesterday's or watch it here on YouTube. I was pretty impressed with that takeaway. What he was able to do mechanically, fake-wise, recognition-wise. It wasn't just the wheels, although the wheels were obviously what they are. I mean, that's pretty incredible. But I feel like Levis was underwhelming, to say the least. I do feel he has that game back in there. So for me, I'm going to put my faith back in him and see if he can recover and see if he can take that step back up and grab the respect that he had a couple weeks ago, because it's failing pretty quick on him. I'll go Levis for now.
Levis for now. Eric Crocker, who are you going to say for later, Levis or Anthony Richardson?
Whew. I mean, you watch Richardson and just what he's able to do. Now, again, the passing numbers weren't off the charts, but that's been the biggest knock, right? The consistency as a passer and what that's going to look like. Well, I have some of his stats pulled down, written down right here. Completed 17 out of 24 passes. So the efficiency for the most part were there. There were a couple misses, and that's fine. Not a whole lot, clearly, when you look at the stats. Only 168 passing yards. You would like to see him maybe push the ball down the field a little bit more. But on those intermediate throws, some of those drive throws, it was really cool to see kind of that zip, the ball come out of his hands right now. And obviously we saw what his feet did. So I'm going to go with him for later just because I think, man, he's just getting started, and I'm excited to see what he continues to do.
Boy, he was fun to watch. In that game against Utah, that game just back and forth. Both teams landing haymakers in 90-degree heat, 100% humidity. And I've been in the swamp for games like that. I don't know how both teams got through, but, man, warrior efforts on both sides. I'll be focused a little bit more on Levis. I want to see a little bit more from Levis. And I'm not saying that Anthony Richardson's playing with house money, but it just felt like Richardson's entire game was just completely cleaned up. It was almost like he had been drawing in pencil outside all the lines, and he erased all that and just started coloring between the lines, but doing it his way. And obviously a 2-point conversion, the spinning out. I mean, just how excited you can get.
Listen,
just ridiculous.
There are a lot of people that they'll tell you, the game is won from the pocket. And it is. That's true. The game as a passer will be won from the pocket. But it is a nice card in your back pocket to have a guy who can make those plays that really aren't there to be made. And that was what we saw from him, even on the 2-point conversion where, hey, okay, I got 2 free runners coming right at me, pump fake, spin out, make both guys miss, and then throw it to a receiver who, albeit was wide open, but it was him that bought time to be able to throw that pass. So just to see that type of athletic ability as well as him continuing to develop from the pocket, I mean, if I were to say, hey man, he's a top 3 pick, I don't think anybody would be surprised because of his trajectory right now. But he has to continue to improve from the pocket. So far good. Can he keep that going? And if so, I mean, that's scary for some of the other quarterbacks who are projected top picks because a lot of them don't have the size, athletic ability, and arm strength that he possesses.
I'm chuckling a little bit because it was interesting. I don't think many people in the city of Houston had a clue who Anthony Richardson was, but then they watched that Florida game, and then all of a sudden in their mind, they're like, hey, if Davis Mills doesn't work out, Nick Caserio, that's the guy, draft him. And all of a sudden they just jumped all over that Anthony Richardson bandwagon, in large part because Dameon Pierce is really sort of working out, and he'll be RB1 for us against the Colts, which would be nice. But to see Richardson up close, you could see our fans like, that guy, him, that's the guy we want. So we'll see it pan out hopefully over this year and see what Anthony Richardson could do. And obviously Will Levis, they'll match up in one of the better matchups this week, Kentucky taking on Florida, as we just took on this show, Locked On NFL Draft. A big thanks to my guys, Ryan Tracy, Eric Crocker. Follow us on Twitter at Eric_Crocker, at Ryan Tracy NFL. I am Jay Harris Football. Get with it. Watching football this weekend. We'll be back next week to chat all about it. Thank you so much for your time. And boys, we're out.
Peace.